Excited to be here today with Mr. James Hardin. He was the executive director of the Lumbee Regional Development Association and now still working with Lumbee Regional Development Association in a different capacity. And I will turn to you for a moment in more explanation of that. James is an early adopter of solar, and this has been one of the most exciting solar installations I've had the good fortune to work on. So we're going to talk a little bit more about experiences here at LRDA. And I wanted to start today, James, by saying thank you for giving us some time today to talk about, the process we've gone through with you all. And I'm wondering, part of the goal of our efforts here today is to help people feel comfortable, at least about beginning to explore solar. And I know that you have a longer history with solar, with some of the work you did and led with LRDA. Can you talk a little bit about some of that past work before we get into the current project at LRDA?
Yeah, the Lumbee Regional Development Association was founded in 1968. I came here in '86 as the CEO, and when I came here in '86, I had been 3 years on a utility board that I was elected to. The utility board company is located down the road about 3 miles from here, but it's a rural electric cooperative, and serving on that board at the time, LRDA, Lumbee Regional Development, we operated a large low-income energy assistance program funded by the federal government, and that program is still in existence. We just don't run it. The tribal council does now, but we used to help folk pay their light bills in the wintertime and summertime with that energy assistance. And by being on the utility board also, I began to be involved with learning the utility industry. And as the decade or so passed along, renewable energy became part of the training and seminars and workshops that I would attend nationally and regionally and statewide with the National Rural Electrification Association out of Washington, D.C. So Lumbee Regional Development has been here again since '68. Its mission is to provide services to the Lumbee tribe, tribal members that qualify for certain kind of services and that kind of thing. So we've been around a long time. How I came to be involved with the rural electric utility is when I first got married. My wife and I bought a home and didn't realize that it was going to be served by an electric utility. It was an electric cooperative, not a for-profit, a non-profit utility board. And so as a part of that, I had the good fortune of learning about the electric utility industry, and later on learned from time to time quite a bit of information about where the renewable energy sector is going, private and public wise. So that's how I came to be involved with social programs and that kind of thing.
So that led up to a good solid foundation of knowledge.
Right.
And then I contacted y'all to begin exploring solar for LRDA. And I'm wondering if you can talk about, some folks have hesitancy in understanding or believing that there can be incentives, whether it's from the federal government or other sources, that can help make solar affordable. What was interesting for you about pursuing solar when we came and sought to partner with you about installing solar energy?
Well, I think I had some core knowledge about renewable energy, particularly solar. And when you first came to talk with me about it, how you came to talk with me about it, or were you reaching out to me? If I remember correctly, you made a presentation at the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs Board meeting, and all the tribes of North Carolina are represented on that. And then I think Greg Richardson, who is the CEO there, sent me an email saying that your company was looking to provide services to tribes to try to reach disadvantaged communities, low wealth communities, minority communities. And what the theme was that I got from talking with you and Greg, that your entity, your organization, Eagle Solar, was really interested in and mission driven to reach out to the nonprofit sector and try to work with the nonprofit sector, be they churches or organizations like us. So the thing that kind of drove me and you to come together was your Eagle Solar had a strong mission segment to work with the nonprofit side of reaching low wealth and minority communities, and that's how we came to connect. And also at that time when I first met you, ironically, and probably historically, our organization, and I headed it up, but we had, at the time you and I first talked, we already had in the ground a 5 megawatt solar farm that we planned, developed, and then sold to an investor group who built it out. So I learned quite a bit about renewable energy solar, particularly in being involved with that project. We started on it in 2014, and I think that 5 megawatt solar farm was actually energized on December of 2016. And the company that investor group that bought it out has since sold it to another group. But the land that solar farm sits on, LRDA owns, and we get a monthly lease payment from the investor group that owns it for the next 15, 25 years. So that payment helps us pay for this. So we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I brought to you a different model, which was solar leasing.
Yeah.
And you became one of our solar leasing partners.
Right.
In that, we installed the solar and you now lease it from SunWealth, our leasing partner.
Right.
How has that leasing process worked out for you?
Well, one of the things about leasing, I'll say, is if a nonprofit entity, a church or our entity or nonprofit entity is going to pursue leasing solar for their facility or buildings, I think one of the limitations is they most likely, the odds are 99% chance that they're going to have to do a lease instead of buying straight out. Because if a nonprofit like us, we did the lease with the Eagle SunWealth, and so we could have not. We didn't. If we'd have went to the bank and borrowed the money to pay it off up front, you'd had interest on top of that. Mm-hmm. And all that. So that would have add into any projected profits as well. So my point is, leasing is, I think, the key option I would recommend any nonprofit entity to look at first, unless it's the Mormon Church and they got plenty of money.
Thank you for partnering with us and giving us the opportunity, because it's really been a fun project.
Yeah. Well, again, I came to be involved with Eagle Solar was, my core knowledge, I call it, by being involved with the utility board. A lot of national conferences, started with our National Rural Electrification Association, which is the national Washington, D.C. advocacy agency for 1,900 co-ops in America. Matter of fact, our convention in San Antonio, Texas is in March. Mm-hmm. And they started bringing all those things to the national meetings and that kind of thing. But one of the things that impressed me about Eagle Solar was the fact that you guys had part of your mission to reach out to the public sector, nonprofit sector, to try to connect them to energy sources that were not traditionally a part of our operations. And the other thing that drove me was the fact that when I was at the university across the road in the 70s, which is in like 1870 now, they established for the first time in North Carolina and probably on the East Coast an American Indian Studies department. And naturally it should be, because this university, by the way, Lucas, was the first Indian college in America. Now it's a full-fledged university and it's integrated. But when I was there in the 70s, it was integrated too. But long story short, I took 26 hours in studies on American Indian history. I learned a lot about Western culture of Indians in Northwestern and Southeastern. And, and I found out part of the heritage before Europeans came was that our American Indian religion was tied to the environment. American, they protected the environment. They had religion. We weren't savages. And as a part of that, they believed there was a God. All the tribes, there's no doubt that we believed that there was a greater power, even though we were called savages later. But my point is, American Indians, in my opinion, based on our heritage, our culture, and a lot of things have changed, should be leading the way in telling the world we need to protect the planet. And we need to protect Mother Earth, is what Native Americans called it in their own language, net Mother Earth, because it fed us, it gave us water, it gave us oxygen, and it was Mother Earth. And then there was a great spirit. Indians had different names for it, but then at the end of the day, you translated it was a great spirit, which is God. Long story short, I'm proud as an individual to be the first one to do our little piece with solar, because every little bit, our 5 megawatt farm here, we're doing a granular piece of trying to save the planet. And it's like throwing sand at the ocean. Everybody doing a little bit in 20, 30 years will add up to a lot. And then the carbon problem that we're having, the goal is to make it go away. And then everybody doing their fair share and doing something to try to do that. And so I think American Indians need to be in the loop. And we need our leaders, Western tribes and other tribes, going and being out there vocal about saving the planet. The problem is in America politically, American Indians is what, 2% of the national? We don't never get to the table to say, in the conversation. With all the things going on in America now and all the divisiveness, Asians, Hispanics, blacks, whites, Indians are never mentioned in anything. And so, long story short, we're just. But my point is that American Indians were trying to preserve the America and keep it livable for future generations. Before Europeans ever came and then started cutting down all the trees and bulldozing all the fields. So, and that's not a bad thing, but it can be done in the context that we save the planet,